I'm Steve Long, I'm a crop physiologist, and my research focuses on ways in which we can improve the efficiency of photosynthesis in crops. Photosynthesis is the process that converts sunlight energy received by the crop into, ultimately, the food that we're producing.
It had always been my goal that once we understood the basics of photosynthesis that we start putting it back together. We also are beginning to understand ways to improve it in terms of readapting it to the climate that we have now, but also improving on what evolution delivered to us to work with. And so we have a lot of understanding now what we might be able to do to improve photosynthesis and thereby improve crop productivity and food security around the world.
To start to improve photosynthesis and the efficiency with which the crop might convert sunlight into food, we represented these 140 steps on a computer so we could actually simulate the whole process to tell you which ones might be the best bet to experimentally change.
Our model crop is going to be tobacco. It's easiest of all the plants to work with from the standpoint of the molecular biology and the genomics, yet it's large enough to test in the field to get proof of concept. And then once we get proof of concept in tobacco, then we have 3 target food crops, and those target food crops are rice, soybean, and cassava. And so these are all important crops in sub-Saharan Africa. Of course, 2 of them you recognize as very important crops around the world. And so we think a lot of what we achieve in rice and in soybean will be applicable outside of sub-Saharan Africa as well.
Arguably, photosynthesis is the most important process on our planet. It is the driving force behind all of life. It's the source of energy for all of life. Is not only our source of food, but it's also where the oxygen on the planet actually came from. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for photosynthesis. Because population is rising and the global population is becoming far more urban, the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization predict that by the year 2050, we're going to need 70% more food than we're producing today. But you have to bear in mind that any innovation we make today in producing more food is not going to be in farmers' fields at any scale for probably 20 years. So with the forecasts of increased global demand, if we don't start today, when food shortages start to appear in 20 years' time, it will be too late. Luckily for us, the Gates Foundation picked up on this work and has now funded us to do this in practice. A requirement of our funding from the Gates Foundation is that these new technologies that they're developing must be freely available, i.e. royalty-free, for poor farmers in developing countries. And so this finding, where we've just made one modification that has boosted crop yield, is really a boost to the whole area, because everyone else working on photosynthesis can now see if we can improve photosynthetic efficiency in crops, we will get more yield.